Greetings YouTube, Alan Liu back. Today I just wanted to share with you what I found basically in my testing with Uzuri. I will be announcing my giveaway winner probably the weekend of pre-release. And originally I had planned to start my budget journey with Uzuri, but after playing with it, or with her I should say, I'm less confident about it. One, because I think the deck itself does have a few issues, and I think starting a budget journey with Uzuri is a pretty difficult uphill battle compared to a hero like Katsu or Azalea, who are both less expensive and also have better support at the lower rarities. But I wanted to share with you just what I've been going through so far. If you watch OK and Y podcast, you'll probably see me play a lot against Oliver. And yeah, let's just go ahead and share the decks. I have 3 decks to share, basically a full deck and 2 budget versions. So yeah, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. I might post more budget decks for like Katsu, Azalea, Riptide, all those, but we'll see if I get around to it. Anyways, so let's first talk about equipment. I think Black Tech is not the obvious choice, actually. Sometimes I wonder if Snapdragon Scalers is better, just because having to hit with your attack to give it go again, and also having it be an assassin attack only is quite limiting. The one block is quite nice, and there will be some games where you get 2 silver, but it's not something you can really rely on. So I do wonder if Snapdragon Scalers is correct, just because if you play a stealth attack, they overblock, you can snap and then punish them maybe with something. I don't know. Crown of Providence, I think, is the obvious choice. Mask of Perdition just isn't it. The deck doesn't run enough contract to warrant it. I've tried playing Uzuri with heavier contract, and it just feels worse to play. I think you're just adding too many things to the deck that can brick your hands. And yeah, next up we have Flick Knives. I think this is the pretty obvious choice. Goliath Gauntlet isn't great because if you swap something in, it doesn't get +2. What other options are there? I don't know. There aren't too many great options, to be honest, and Flick Knives is great because you can do the trick with Nerve Scalpel, where if they block with the defense reaction, you can react to that defense reaction before it resolves, flick a Nerve Scalpel at them, and that defense reaction will get -1. It doesn't come up too often because if they're overblocking, sometimes that -1 isn't needed, but if you swap in, say, like a Surgical and they sink below, you can flick your Nerve Scalpel at them. And for the most part, you don't really care about having 2 daggers because I can count, like, there's barely turns where you actually attack with both daggers. Next up is Tunic. I think Tunic's just, honestly, just too good. It's in basically every deck, and this deck is no exception. I think the Assassin chess piece is okay, but the problem is the deck just doesn't generate enough silver. I can't consistently get a second Black Tech in most games, so having 2 equipment that you want to generate silver for is just too much, and then that makes you want to play more contract cards, and then that lowers the consistency of the deck. So just Spring Tunic. Nerve Scalpel, Spider's Bite. Spider's Bite, there's an Orbita class in sideboard. You kind of just switch that out depending on the matchup, and I think you always just want to run 1 Nerve Scalpel. So that's pretty standard. Going on into the deck list, I would say most things are fairly standard. Let's just go through it real quick. In terms of red stealth cards, I have Backstab, Infect, Infiltrate, Sedate, Wither. Basically anything with a good, the main 3 on hits, Infect, Wither, Sedate, are pretty solid. Infiltrate, I'm kind of iffy on. I'm not sure. Most of the time you're swapping this out, and if you just leave it, most of the time it's not going to hit, but I just left it in there because I'm still trying it out. Backstab, I kind of like better than Isolate, because Isolate, the advantage for that is that they can't overblock, but a lot of the times decks aren't overblocking anyways, because to be quite frank, Assassin is not that punishing. So most heroes probably just won't block. I think Backstab is nice because they can't play too many defense reactions against you, so you can another issue is that if you swap in, say, like a Shakedown or a CNC and they have a defense react in Arsenal, they can play it out to your stealth card before Uzuri resolves. So by playing Backstab, you force them not to play the defense reaction. So if you swap in like a Command and Conquer or a Wreck Havoc, then you can get them that way. So I like backstab a little better right now. But I mean, I think it's probably super meta dependent, and I haven't tested into like all of the heroes, so that one's pretty flexible. Command and Conquer, standard. Death Touch, probably one of the best cards that Assassin has access to. If you arsenal it, you can play it off Tunic, which is really good. A Tunic for 6 plus an on hit is very powerful. You can swap it in with Uzuri. It's an Assassin attack, so you can do all your shred and other shenanigans with it. E-Strike, I think, is important because it's a block 3 red that helps you extend your turns. 5 go again is like fairly on rate for this deck. So yeah, I honestly kind of think it has to be there. In fact, Infiltrate we talked about. Leave No Witnesses, of course, one of the best on hits in the deck. And is one of your few ways to generate silver. Ravenous Rabble, another way to extend turns. You can also swap in Ravenous Rabble for a 5 go again, and that can also help you extend turns while also being a little tricky, but I haven't seen like enough situations where that comes up too much, really. Razor Reflex, I think this deck does need a good mix of attack reactions in order to, one, extend turns, and also to punish opponents for blocking incorrectly. Sedate we talked about. Shakedown, Specialization, great card. It's also kind of awkward because it's not a great arsenal card, because if you just play it out, the on-hit effect isn't there. You can play Shakedown and threaten Flick Knives, so that is something you can do. But overall, I think it's a good card. You get to see their hand, you get to banish, so definitely 3 of. Spike with Blood Rot, I am less confident on its inclusion, but once again, it's another way to use the cards in your hands without consistent go again. Helps you go taller. The Blood Rot Pox is actually quite impactful. And one of the main ways to extend your turn is with Black Tech Whisperers. And if they're able to defense react you feel like you just need some attack reactions to go over. And I picked Blood Rot because it's just the most universal. It might not be correct. It could be like Inertia is better. I'm not sure. Wither talked about. Codex of Frailty is my favorite codex for this deck. Codex of Blood Rot is also really good. It bricks hands like a little too much for my liking, and this deck doesn't really have an open arsenal slot very easily. So I like Frailty because you can recur like a Leave No Witnesses or a Death Touch from your grave and play it out, and giving them a Frailty token is quite nice. But I could see Codex of Blood Rot also being good. I don't think I would run Inertia, but I don't know. Hard to say. I run through 6 shreds, the yellows and the blues. Red shred is just too bricky. If they don't block, it's kind of a dead card. So yellow and blue makes sense because they're still resource cards at the end of the day. You can still pitch a yellow to Dagger. You can pitch a yellow to play CNC. And they block 3, so I just think the card's necessary. Concealed Blade is basically just another shred, sort of. It's just another attack react that is +1 instead of minusing their defending cards, which is important, and is also the only way you can get a dagger back. And honestly, getting a dagger back isn't that big of a deal, but if you flick your knife early and you have an opportunity to play Concealed Blade, then it can be okay. And then Surgical Extraction, of course, another great on hit, and one of 2 contract cards along with Leave No Witnesses. So this is where the deck is right now for me. In terms of what I could change, Spike with Blood Rot is flexible. The number of stealth cards I'm running is also flexible. We have, I believe, 5 reds. Yeah, 3 on hits, Infiltrate, Backstab, and then 3 blue backstabs. Just because playing a blue on hit stealth is kind of pointless. I'd rather have the blue be sort of like an evasion trick, something like Isolate or Backstab. And the deck feels decent against like very aggro decks. I'm sure this deck can have a good time. You have good disruption. You can present an okay amount of damage at the same time. But against any mid-range deck or control deck, I just feel like Assassins will struggle because at the end of the day, you're not pushing that much damage through. Your weapon is very below rate, and while it does make it hard for them to block, if they're ever in a situation where they don't need to block, then you're just presenting below rate damage, which is kind of the issue. But I do think there's more potential to be found out with this deck. I'm just not quite sure what that is right now. And then sideboard, I just have a bunch of other cards I'm testing. Some Null Rune, another Nerf Scalpel for Flick Knives, Orbit of Class if you're playing against like Icelander instead of Spider's Bite. We have Spreading Plague as another way to push damage through against decks that just want to block a lot. Like if they block 3 cards on, I don't know, a Shakedown or a CNC or something, a Spreading Plague is presenting like 6 damage. Sink Below, just a great defense reaction. And then Cut Down to Size is probably the best one for aggro decks that plan to not block you. A lot of decks will just hold 4-card hands and avoid arsenaling because a lot of your on hits attack Arsenal, CNC, and leave no witnesses. So Cut Down to Size is great there also. And so that's where my main deck is right now. I'm kind of going to put testing this one on hold for now because I don't know what I would change too much about this. But yeah, let's move on to the 2 budget decks. So this first budget deck is basically a similar playstyle to that of the main deck, except you're running just worse cards, to be honest. Snapdragon Scalers, I talked about this already, but it honestly might even be correct to just run this over Black Tech Whisperers, but I'm not sure about that. 2 Spiders Bite, if you have Nerf Scalpel, run that. Mask, this is basically Iron Rot. You could use the other mask, that's also basically Iron Rot. Braces of Belief, you can play it with Rabble to hopefully get +2. CNC, or no, you can't even play CNC. Shakedown for 8 maybe. And then Blossom of Spring, honestly, I'm not sure what the best budget chess piece is. Blossom of Spring is nice because you can play Death Touch from Arsenal with no cards. And that's basically like Tunic, except you can only do it once. Vest of the First Fist, I don't really think there's a situation where that'll be too useful. You can possibly extend your turn with like play Leave No Witnesses, they don't block, you snap it, play Vest of the First Fist, and then you come in with like a Shakedown or something. Even that, it's not great, but there aren't too many great options in the generic budget chess piece slot. So unfortunately, that's where it is. If the legendary chess piece isn't too expensive, I don't think it's that bad to add in, but yeah. So moving on to the deck, it's this mostly the same. We got the backstabs, Cut Down to Size, Death Touch. We run more stealth cards just because we don't have as many other options to run, like E-Strikes and things like that. I would say like the only requirements for the bare minimum for playing Uzuri is Leave No Witnesses and Shakedown, because without those disruptive pieces, you're just not presenting anything. We have Ravenous Rabble, same. Razor. Scar is basically just another decent rate card. And if you're on a budget, you're probably lower life anyways. So Scar is just 0 for 4 go again most times. Sink Below, another just great card. Spike with Blood Rot, same thing. Wither, same shreds. And then Lunging Press has another like combat trick, I guess. I'm kind of iffy on this one also, but we'll see. I'm not sure about that one. So this deck, it kind of plays a very similar way to this deck, except it's just cheaper. And then for this last budget deck is a very redline Uzuri budget deck. So instead of playing blues and stuff, you're basically playing contract cards. You're playing a ton of reds, a ton of attack reacts. And how this deck tries to win is just hopefully you land your on hits like Leave No Witnesses and Shakedown, and you're just presenting enough raw damage every turn. The only issue with this deck is that you kind of have to like block with 2 or 3 cards and then play 1 card, or block with 2 cards, play 2 cards. And the issue is that if you're blocking inefficiently, or if you need to block 4 cards, this deck just falls behind super fast. So we have basically all the stealth cards in red, and we have all the 0 for 4 contracts, and we have 9 shreds. Yeah, 9 shreds. And basically, I feel like this deck is probably better than this budget version. This budget version plays more like the top end version, but the issue is that your cards are just weaker. So I think having this like redline playstyle is better. Your Rabbles are going to be more consistently 4 damage. Even playing like a Plunder the Poor or like a Fleece the Frail or something on an off turn is still good. You're presenting 0 for 4. If you can block 9 and present 0 for 4, then it's like you have an average hand of 13. But you know, sometimes those hands aren't great. And Cut to the Chase is here because you're playing more contract cards, and combining it with Leave No Witnesses is very good. If they block and you cut to the chase, and you get a lot of value. You could also run Cash In this deck, because since you're running more contract cards, you are generating more silver, but silver is very iffy. Like it's not a consistent thing you can rely on. So it's an option, but yeah. And that's about it for these budget decks. I would say, yeah, like the bottom line is you want Shakedown and Leave No Witnesses. Wreak Havoc is also pretty nice. Cut Down to Size is nice. So I think the deck is possible to be played. on a budget level, but I think that you would have success with a lot of other better success with a lot of other heroes. I think if you're dead set on playing assassin, then you can, give this a go. I don't expect you to win too many games, to be honest. Even when I play this deck, it's like I always feel like I'm just like a turn or two behind, and it's unfortunate, but that's just kind of the reality of what it is. And I think if there was a better like chest slot or even a head slot, then this deck could compete a little bit better. But I think just starting out, go to pre-release, go to drafts, and accumulate some cards and figure out what you like to play, what you want to play. But yeah, so that's my deck. These are my decks. I'll leave it all in the description. Let me know what you think if I'm missing anything, especially for like the top end. I'm sure there's other things I haven't explored. I'm sure when I play this deck, I'm also not playing it correctly. Some of the lines are a little confusing, a little hard to figure out in the moment, but yeah, overall, I think Uzuri is in an okay spot. I don't think she's unplayable, but I definitely would say that she's in the bottom half of the heroes in the game. So yeah, those are my deck techs. I'll probably be back with other heroes in budget versions also. I'm mostly deciding between playing Katsu or Azalea probably. Just because Katsu has access to links, which is a very powerful headpiece on a budget. It's like what, $5 maybe for non-foil. But then Azalea also has a lot of powerful common cards. So not sure. We'll see. But yeah, that was it. Thanks for watching.